And so God might not call you to give every single dollar away, but if he did, would you? Because Jesus is concerned about the heart. Do you see the money as yours? Or do you already see it as God? Do you see your talents as yours? Or do you see it as God's? Do you see your time as yours, or do you see it as God's?
We talk a lot about Sunday, but what happens when the Sunday feeling ends and the rest of the week begins? We draw a line. Faith on this side and real life on this side. But what if you were made for more than just one day of the week? What if your work is your worship, your commute, your service, your rest, a holy act? Your faith wasn't just made for a building. You were made for Mondays.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Christ Church. We are a church about lifting lives, elevating Christ, a church for those not here yet. Whether you're joining us here in East, joining us over in West, or joining us online, welcome. Thank you for being part of Christ Church this morning. If I haven't met you yet, my name is Nathan. I'm a vicar here at Christ Church, which is a fancy way of saying pastor in training. And this morning, we are continuing our message series, Made for Mondays. We got this one, and then next week, and then we're going to move on to Hungry, Hungry Hippos. So looking forward to that. But Made for Mondays has been all about this reminder to us that living as a Christian is about way more than just showing up to church on Sunday. It's about more than just checking the box of saying, I went to church, I'm good on my faith stuff for the week. But it's this reminder that we were made for more than just that. We were made to live out our faith, live the full Christian life every day of the week. That we weren't just made to show up on Sundays. We weren't just made to get through the work week or the school week or whatever we do in our everyday lives. That we were made to live full lives every day of the week. And of course, being a Christian doesn't mean your life's going to be perfect. Following God every day doesn't mean your life is going to be perfect and everything's going to go according to plan. But it is the best and most purposeful way to live. To help you live a full Christian life, we created this wheel at Christ Church, which are these 5 disciplines, these actions that we hope you engage in, that we hope you participate in. That when you worship, you invite, you serve, you give, and you rest. You engage in these disciplines that people of Christ and Christ Church have been called to do. And so over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about how we can worship and invite and serve every day of the week. What it looks like to worship on Monday, what it looks like to invite on Monday. And last week we talked about serve and how service is about way more than just volunteering at church on Sunday. It's about more than just serving in official volunteer roles on Monday. It's about having a heart of service. It's about service being who we are, that who we are as people are people that serve. That you can serve in small ways in your everyday life. And a silly example I gave last week was that one way you can serve is by parking farther away so that someone who can't walk as well as you doesn't have to park so far away and walk so far. Little did I know last week when I said this that I would sprain my knee this week, and so I'd be the person that needed to park close. So thank you for leaving some spots for me. But this week, we're going to talk about give. Good, no one went running out of the church, so that's good. But give is one of those hard things to talk about in church, right? It's one of those things where we've seen churches speak poorly about giving, that giving is a scary thing to talk about in church. But giving is about way more than just tithing to a church. Then when we talk about giving today, we're talking about outside of just giving money on Sunday, but how it looks to give every part of ourselves to God every day of the week. And we use this word tithing because that is from the Old Testament. There's this idea that in the Old Testament, we were commanded, the Jewish people rather, were commanded by God to give 10%, the first 10% of whatever they made, whether it's crops or their income or whatever they're producing, to give the first 10% to God and then do what they want with the other 90%. And Pastor Andrew, a couple weeks ago, if you want to go back and watch it in his radical generosity sermon, talked about how in the Old Testament, giving was commanded, but in the New Testament, giving is a choice. That we give not out of obligation, but we give out of discipline. That we give out of love. That when Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment? He says, love your God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so if we were to live out the commandment, the greatest commandment, means we give everything out of love. Because giving is about more than just showing up on Sunday and dropping some money in an offering basket or in an offering box. In fact, at Christ Church, you can sign up and give on Monday. Did you know that? That's a joke. I mean, it's not a joke. You can do that, but that's not what we're talking about today. Because giving's about giving everything, every day of the week. To illustrate what this looks like, to actually give everything, we're going to look at a story from Mark 12. Mark is one of the Gospels, one of these accounts of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. Mark heard a lot and was taught by and worked with Peter, one of Jesus' disciples. And so Mark wrote down some of these stories and things he had heard from Peter. And he writes down this story of Jesus in the temple and how Jesus sees some people give a lot of money, and Jesus sees this woman who in actuality gives very little, but according to Jesus, she gives way more. Mark writes, Jesus sat down near the collection box in the temple and watched as the crowds dropped in their money, and many rich people put in large amounts. And so we think we're going to adopt this practice here at Christ Church. Pastor Andrew's actually going to be standing by the offering box as you walk out. No, of course not. We would never do that. But I do think if Jesus was standing by the offering box, I might give a few extra dollars. But Jesus is sitting there not to judge people based on how much they're giving, not to condemn the people that don't give. No, he's sitting there because he wants to see this widow who gives and to lift her up and to bless her and to show us what it looks like to give everything. He sees these rich people give large amounts. And in actuality, the large amounts the rich people give are going to have a large impact. When they give, the temple is able to do better ministry. When people give to charities, they're able to help more people. When you give to Christ Church, we're able to build wells in Pakistan. Thank you for your generosity that allows us to do things like that. But for Jesus here, he isn't concerned. His primary concern isn't what the temple will be able to do with the money. When you give to Christ Church, our concern isn't about what we're able to do with the money. For Jesus, it's about the heart. It's not about how much you give, but if you're willing to give everything. He says, then a poor widow came and dropped in 2 small coins. It's not much. I imagine the rich people bringing bags full of money. And yet you have this widow with 2 small coins. Now, of course, those 2 small coins added up together with other people giving 2 small coins can have an impact. But when you're sitting and you see people give a bag full of money and then 2 small coins, Jesus focuses on the 2 small coins. Because for Jesus, it's not about the amount, it's about the heart. He sees this and he calls his disciples to him and he says, he sees this. He's like, this is such a great teaching moment. Disciples, you need to see this. He says, I tell you the truth. This poor widow has given more than all the others who are making contributions. Jesus says she has given more, even though in reality she's given a lot less. For Jesus, she gave more because in her heart, she gave more. Percentage-wise, she gave more. She didn't give out of abundance. She didn't give 10%. She gave everything. Jesus says, for they, the rich people, gave a tiny part of their surplus, and the temple was blessed because of it. But she, poor as she is, has given everything she had to live on. This widow gives everything. 100%. Everything she has. Now, that's not to say that you as people of God and Christians and disciples should follow necessarily in the footsteps of the widow and give 100% of your money away. No, God has given you resources. He's given you everything. He's given you time and gifts and talents and money to steward it well. And part of stewarding it well will be giving some away, but part of stewarding it well is taking care of your family, taking care of your loved ones. And so it'll be up to you, that discipline of what God is calling you to do. And so God might not call you to give every single dollar away, but if he did, would you? Because Jesus is concerned about the heart. Do you see the money as yours? Or do you already see it as God? Do you see your talents as yours? Or do you see it as God's? Do you see your time as yours, or do you see it as God's? This week I heard from someone talking about generosity. He talked about these stages of giving, that Christians in their life go through these stages of giving. And he challenged me to think about, what stage are you at? And so as I go through these, I hope you think about, where are you at with giving? And these stages aren't about the amount you're giving, they're about the heart. That do you think of things in stage one as it is 100% mine? That I worked hard for this, I own it, I bought it, I earned it. Do you think of it as your own? Or stage two, Christians move along and they realize, okay, I've been given these gifts, it's mine to do with as I want, but maybe I should give. After all, building wells is great. It's a good thing to do. People need help. I can help them. This charity is doing great work. I can give to them. I can volunteer my time. I can give that way. I can be generous in my spirit by spending time with a friend who needs it. But it's mine. I'm making these decisions. It's my stuff. It's my time. It's my resources to give away or not. And then stage three. Some people realize, in the Old Testament, people were called to give 10%. So I'll follow in those footsteps. I'll give 10% to God, but the other 90%, that's mine. I give the 10% away so that I can do whatever I want with the 90%. And then there's stage four. The stage the widow is clearly in, the stage that not many Christians tend to ever get to. But I think it's the stage we're all called to. That we understand that our life, the stuff we have, the stuff we own is not our own. That everything is 100% God's. That he made you, he made the earth, he made the money you have, he made the time you have, he blessed you with talents and resources. That if it wasn't for him, you would have nothing. That you're simply here borrowing it. You're simply here stewarding it for him. To do with it not what you want to do with it, but hopefully to do with the time, talent, and resources he has given you what he wants for it. That you use everything you have to love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Way back at the beginning of the series, we talked about Matthew 16:24, where Jesus tells his disciples, if any of you wants to be my follower, my disciple, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. That what it looks like to follow God is to take up our cross. And Jesus says this before he takes up his cross literally, before he dies upon the cross. He says you should give up your life, that this life is not longer your own. Paul says you've been bought with a price, the price of Jesus and his death and his resurrection. And so live in such a way that your life is no longer your own, but live in such a way that you've taken up your cross, that you are willing to give everything to God. We talked about Bonhoeffer. this Christian, this Lutheran, living in Nazi Germany, who eventually died for his faith. And he wrote, when Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. That Jesus calls us to take up our cross. Now, hopefully that doesn't mean literal death for us. But what it does mean is understanding that we no longer live for ourselves. That is, our life is not 100% mine. It's not 90% mine. Our life is God's. We give everything to him. For kind of a sillier example of this, I can think of a time when I gave everything. I was in middle school, and I was going to a Donald Driver football camp. Donald Driver, the old Packers wide receiver. And I showed up there, and there's like 100 other middle schoolers there, and Donald Driver's there, and he's wearing like a compression shirt, so you could see all 57 of his abs very clearly. Seriously, I've never seen abs like that before. And the camp begins with us doing, these middle schoolers doing roughly 1 million push-ups. And this one, we just kept doing push-ups and kept doing push-ups. And this went on for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I don't know. But I had done more push-ups than I'd ever had in my life before. And since. And I just kept giving everything. And football coaches always talk about, you got to give 110%. And I never knew what that meant until that moment. But I just kept giving more and more and gave everything until I collapsed because I couldn't let Donald Driver down. And that's a silly example. And I did feel like I was dying. But that's how God calls us to live in everything we do. To give everything to him. Now, when we talk about giving, of course, we're not just talking about money, but money is a part of it. And when you hear giving in a church, you're going to think about money. And money's a hard topic. So many of us struggle with finances or are facing hardships with money. And so if you feel like you need help with money, we have a resource. It's our gift to you. It's called Ramsey Plus. It's the subscription service to this financial services. In Ramsey Plus, there's stuff about budgeting. There's stuff about getting out of debt. There's stuff about legacy planning. There's virtual classes you can take. There's so much stuff in here. And Ramsey Plus has gotten more people out of debt than anything else in history by far. And so it is our free gift to you, this 1-year subscription to Ramsey Plus. You can go on our website and find this. You can bring it up in the digital bulletin. It is a great resource to you if you need help with finances, or if you're doing great with finances, you want to learn more. It's our gift to you. And if you know someone who doesn't go to church here, who doesn't even like Jesus at all, it is our gift to them too. You can give this to them too. Because we want to help you with finances so that you're better able to give not just money, but everything. In Genesis 1, the first book in the Bible, first chapter in the Bible, God creates everything. He creates heaven and earth. He separates the sky from the sea. He forms the land. He puts the animals in the land and in the sea and in the sky. We have bird and fish and animals. And then he creates humans. And when he creates humans, Genesis 1:27 says, God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. That he creates humans in his image. He has created you in his image. Unlike the land, unlike the birds, the fish, the animals, unlike anything else in creation, he created you to resemble him, to represent him, to work on his behalf in the world. And he gave us as humans jobs. He blessed them. And he said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and govern it. Reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the animals that scurry along the ground. He tells Adam and Eve to reign. And what a good king or a good queen does in their kingdom is they take care of their kingdom and the people within it. And so God tells Adam and Eve, and he tells us today to take care of God's kingdom. and the people within it. To give everything in order to love God and love our neighbor as ourselves. And he told Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply. And normally people think about this as him telling Adam and Eve to make more humans. And I think that was a part of it. But I think God's primary concern was proliferating his image. That yes, the more humans that exist, the more image bearers that exist. We are called to be fruitful and multiply too. When Jesus talks about bearing fruit, he talks about actions, that you know a tree by its fruit, meaning you know a Christian by their actions, by their disciplines. Are you living in such a way that other people see God at work through you? Are you living in such a way that other people see God's image through how you live? Jesus says, let your light shine before others that they see your good works and glorify your Father who's in heaven. And so when Jesus tells us to be fruitful and multiply, he's telling us to proliferate God's image, to live in such a way that God's image shines through you. And as you do so, those not here yet will see that. And hopefully you invite them, you share faith with them, and they come to know Jesus for themselves. And so as his image shines through you, it now shines through those people too. And so we proliferate God's image. We're fruitful and multiply. We're made in his image. And you are made to give. Not just money, but you are made to give everything. And you can do so because God has given everything to you, and he has given everything for you. That God created you. In the beginning, he created humans. He knit you together in your mother's womb. He made you. But of course, we know the story of Adam and Eve. They ate the fruit, sin entered in, and there's sin and death and despair and brokenness in this world. And it doesn't take long of looking around you to see sin and death and brokenness around you. It doesn't take long of looking within you to see sin and death and brokenness and pain and sorrow within you. That God made you, and yet because of sin, you have separated yourself from God. But the good news is the story doesn't end there. Because Jesus gave everything for you. God himself entered into the world, hung on a cross, and died for you. And he rose again for you to give you new life. And so because Jesus gave everything for you, because God gave everything to you, you can give everything too. You were made to give. You were made to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. You were made to let your light shine so that others can see it. You were made to proliferate God's image, to share faith, to show God's love to those not here yet, so that they see God at work through you and they come to faith of their own. You were made to give. Not out of abundance, not 10%. You were made to give everything. And you can give everything because God has given everything to you, and Jesus has given everything for you. Let's pray. Gracious Almighty God, Jesus, we thank you for who you are, for what you've done. God, we thank you that you entered into this world. That God, you made us, but you didn't leave us here. That Jesus, you entered in. You suffered and died for us. You rose again for us and have given us new life. And so Jesus, help us to know that we are made to give. Help us to be people that give as you have given for us. Jesus, we thank you that you have given everything to us and for us. Help us to discern and know the ways you have called us to give. Whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's talents, resources. praise, worship, whatever it is, God, help us to give. Jesus, we thank you, we praise you, we pray this in your holy and powerful name. Amen.